Talk, where disaster is the talk of your town. I'm Ruama Camp, your host for today, and I'm with Grace Community Services as the Executive Director. Today on our Disaster Talk show, we have a great guest, Miss Renee Martin. We want to thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. You're probably wondering, why did they call and ask me to come to Disaster Talks? Well, I'm glad that you thought that. You're an important piece to what we do in the disaster industry. We move around the country helping victims. And I'd just like for you to tell us a little bit about your battle with Hurricane Ike and where you are today. So if you could just tell us, as Ike hit the shore, now were you in Galveston?
When Hurricane Ike hit, I was living in Port Arthur.
Port Arthur.
It's my hometown, Jefferson County. And what happened is I have two sisters and a mother. My mother ended up going to Dallas. I came to Houston. And my other sister, who works for Jefferson County as a sheriff, she had to stay because they don't allow them to leave. So she was left back home.
That had to be really, really hard.
Yeah.
To know a loved one was left behind.
Yeah, well, she's been with the Sheriff's Department for 18 years now. So we pretty much know each time a storm hits, she has to stay.
She's protecting and serving.
Yes.
Awesome. So what was it like as you were displaced from your home, split up from your mom and your sister? That had to have been hard, especially for your mother.
It was. My mother went with the rest of her family. She has a brother who lives in Dallas, and she went with her other siblings to Dallas. Her house was damaged the most out of all of my relatives in the family. Her house was damaged the most because her entire roof caved in.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then, were they able to repair your mom's home?
Well, it took several months for her. When we actually finally got back, because it was several weeks before we were able to go back. But when we were able to go back, obviously the mold had set into her house from the roof being gone, so she could not stay in the house at all. Luckily, at that time, because I had just moved to Houston, I had a home in Port Arthur, and we just had her to move into that home while her house was being fixed. Didn't know that 2 years later we would still be in the same position that we were when the hurricane hit.
2 years later, you're in the same position.
Correct.
What does that mean? Does that mean that your mom is still living in your house?
What happened is she went through several different agencies to try to get her house fixed. And of course, there's a lot of red tape involved in getting approved to have your home redone. And if you don't have insurance, it's especially hard.
So when you say your mom had to get her home redone, are you saying that they had to rebuild?
They had to tear her house down. Once the contractors looked at the home, once the city was able to go out and look at her home, they said that her house could not be rebuilt. They had to tear it down completely and start over.
Wow.
Because of the damage to the home. So after several pieces of red tape that she had to go through, she was finally approved to have her house redone. And so about a year and a half after the hurricane is when we started to see movement.
A year and a half later.
A year and a half.
So your mom went to Dallas. How long was she there in Dallas?
She was in Dallas for 3 weeks. And what happened is my sister, who's at the Sheriff's Department, was able to show her pictures of her home. And while she was in Dallas, she actually told her brother, who gave the message to my sister and I that she said basically, if it weren't for her kids, she would not have gone back home because of the devastation to the home itself, and because she felt like she had lost everything. My father had previously passed. He passed away in 95. And so with that and with the whole devastation of the house, I think she felt like she just didn't have anything to go back to.
She was lost. She had lost hope.
Right, right.
So I heard you say that she went to several agencies and they were able to find her some help in getting her house rebuilt.
Right.
Well, that's great. I also heard you say 1.5 years later.
Right. It took about 1.5 years for all of the process to get approved. Once she was approved for the home to be rebuilt, the contractors came out, told her, gave her her layout. In fact, it approved for her a 3-bedroom house. I think the largest that the state approves on homes was what she was approved for, because she had my younger sister also living with her. And contractors came out, put the first initial stages of the work that was to be done there, and then that contract company actually left with the money.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, I say that because in the business of disaster, in the case management arena, we see that all the time, that people are so trusting, they're believing that you came to help me.
Right.
And you run away with the material or all the money.
Right.
So, wow, she's went through a lot.
Yeah. And at that point, really and truly, at that point, she stopped. She just really and truly, because she was living in my house, and she really and truly felt like, as you said earlier, she had no hope. And so she really just gave up. And so it was through my sister and I really being dedicated to making sure that this follows through, and that she really got to where she was before the hurricane. If it hadn't been for us, she would not have gotten her house built.
You know, and I hear that what you're saying, it takes a support group to be able to take someone who has been devastated, hold their hand and keep telling them it's going to get better. When they don't see better, they see what it is today. So I commend you guys for being able to do that. I know on my journey in the disaster case management arena, I meet families who don't have kids. They don't have daughters that can help them walk through the process of recovery. And they rely a lot on case managers to do that. So it's awesome that you guys were there for her. It's awesome that you guys kept the hope. Because sometimes as a caretaker, you too can have a little flickering of the flame of hope as well. And so I'm glad that y'all protected y'all flame so that it could keep bright for her to keep going on. So 2 years later, where are you guys at today?
So today, she's currently in her home. Her home was built functional in February.
February of 2010.
Correct. She moved in. Of course, they built her house, but that's all that she was given. I think for me and my sister, we were just really just appreciative that, you know, she at least got that. And so the other stuff, it really gives you an opportunity to see what's important in life and those things that really matter. Because when you don't have anything, it's really easy for you to understand how people feel in certain situations.
A stove, a refrigerator, important things.
Things that we take for granted. In fact, when I said that she moved into my house, it's a house that was bought by me and my ex-husband years ago, and it was just vacant. and it was fully furnished, and we were actually in the process of letting someone else move into the house. And then the hurricane came, and so luckily we were able to give her all of the furnishings out of that home to take to her new home. But again, if you don't really understand what it takes to get from one place to the next, and where she was a place that she just really gave up. I really do thank Grace Community Services, and I appreciate you, Ms. Kemp, for the vision that you had and what you're doing with Grace, because with me starting this job here in February, I started here before she actually moved in her home. And so for me, at a previous job, I used to go to work every day, and I would have to hide in a room and pray with my staff because it wasn't allowed. And so when I got here, that was one of the first things that I was told. And the joy that I felt knowing that it was acceptable to do that was it was immeasurable.
As a victim that has been hired to work in a disaster ministry, what is that like for you?
Well, it's an experience that you really can't begin to explain. When I came here, I understood this job to be a faith-based organization that helped people. And there's just so many different facets to that you don't understand. Being in a position where my mother was directly impacted by the hurricane, I was able to see from both sides. Because again, when I started this job, my mother wasn't in her house yet. And then to top it off with her house situation, she had to end up paying 2 years of insurance before they would allow her to even move in. And so for someone who never worked, my mother didn't have a job. She had to solely depend on my sister and myself. And so when I came here with the understanding that God ordered my steps here. And for whatever reason that was, I was going to do the job to 100% of whatever I could give. And it's just been so awesome to see what He has done for me personally through this job and through this experience. I have gotten so much closer to Him just in the months that I've been here, which was my ultimate goal. And also being able to see how we really do assist the citizens out there.
Well, you know, Grace wants to pride itself on being able to do what we say we're going to do. I just, in wrapping up, because you are one of the team players for the Ruse List, from a victim's point of view, how do you feel about the Ruse List? And then tell us how working with the Ruse List is for you as an employee.
Well, for the first question, I think that the Ruse List department as a whole, we hold people's lives in our hand. We're able to assist these people that don't have a voice, that has lost hope. And when we think that we have nothing left, and I'm talking from a victim standpoint, when we feel like we have nothing left, there are people out there that are working to get us what we need to become whole. Being on the Ruse List team, I know that personally it has made me fight harder to put those resources out there, because I know that if I had been in a position where those resources were available for my mother, it wouldn't have taken 2 years for her to rebuild her life. It was a hard battle and struggle to get her to that point 2 years later. knowing that people are out there that lose sleep because people's lives are in our hands. When we talk about people not having, we've been there. And so when my mom suffered, we all suffered. When we lost my dad, that was a really big hurdle for us to cross because my mom never worked. And so she had to learn to do that and depend on herself and not someone else. But knowing that there are people out there that care and they take this job and day in and day out, they come here and they affect people's lives. I can't tell you what a price you can put on that. Again, I just say thank you to you for the opportunity and to continue to do what you're doing because you may never know the lives that you impact. But I'll tell you personally, it's made me a different person.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being with us today. You know, she said a lot of important things. She said that when you are losing hope, you should be mindful that you have people working on your behalf behind the scenes. What that is saying is that people behind the scenes are making changes. They're making a difference. And so I say to all of you tuned in on the Ruse List Disaster Talk, you need to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we have intelligent people working behind the scene on your client's behalf. We need you to survive. We need you to make sure that you are telling us about your resources that your agency has to offer. We need you to go and call your friend that's sitting at another agency that has resources available. We need you to give them our number, 1-877-839-1744. Our Ruse List team will be waiting for your call. Please make sure that you're passing it on. As disaster and programs are winding down in your town, we have to be able to transition our clients to stable agencies who have plenty of hot resources. Well, that about wraps it up for me. I'm Ruama Camp, Executive Director with Grace Community Services, and we are the talk of your town, Disaster Talks. You're awesome.